Yeah, Karti, I'm Dr. Anjul here. Yeah, so yeah, right. So, and my audio is okay? Sure. Okay. All right. Okay.
You want phone? Huh?
नहीं.
Yes, sir. Audio is fine.
Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. Hi, I am Dr. Anjul here, and very good evening to all of you. I am basically a pediatric intensivist at Continental Hospital in Hyderabad. Uh, Pediatric intensivist is the one who takes care of the very critically ill child who are usually in ICU. But today I'm not here to talk to you about a critical illness. I'm going to talk to you about something else which is again very critical, and this is more to do with the child psychology. I'm going to talk about the behavior disorder in the children, and this is one aspect as a pediatricians we are seeing a lot, which has happened in last 3 to 4 months because of the lockdown. And increasing in a behavior disorder in the children, either because of the lockdown or because of not going out or being on the online net and etc. So these are the problems. So as I said, my name is Dr. Anjul, and I'm pediatric intensivist, if somebody has missed, so in Continental Hospital. So in next 1 hour, this is what I'm going to talk. Child psychology is my lateral interest, and I've done a lot of work on that. So in 1 hour, what I'm going to do is trying to define some of the behavior problems that we see in the children, try to analyze why the child behaves that way, and try to find out what we can do as a parent. I'm not going to talk about what you can do when you bring to the child to a doctor or what medications we are going to use, because I feel that 90 or almost 95% of the psychological problem with the children are facing now can be negated by making a little bit change in the home environment, in our behavior, and trying to understand the child behavior. So this is what we are going to do in an hour, and maybe at the end of the hour I'll be able to take some questions from you. Right, so now let us talk about what we mean by the behavior disorder in the children. Now, the maximum amount of the behavior problems in the child come when there is a conflict between what as a parent we expect from the child and what the child does at that particular moment of time, and this conflict actually causes a maximum number of behavior problems. For example, suppose there's somebody who comes to your house, okay, your friend, and he's there and two of you are talking and your child walks in. What is your reaction as a parent? What you usually do as a parent? So most of the time what we do is we ask a child, okay, chalo uncle ko apna naam batao, tell your name, and the child tells the name, and then we the person or you sometimes will tell, okay, tell which class are you studying, which school are you studying. If the child is small, we expect him to tell a nursery rhyme or sing a song, and the child might not be in the mood to do that. But if he is not doing it, then we get very angry. We keep on telling a child, हर समय तो घर पे चिल्लाते रहते हो. No, but when we tell them you to talk, you are not talking at all. So there is a problem. The problem is that we want to portray a child as a trophy. We want to showcase a child that the child will do whatever we want him to do. Now remember, child is not a piano where you press a key and a sound comes. He is also a human being. If you put yourself in your child condition, place, and try to analyze, if somebody tells you, okay, this is my friend, tell him your name, tell him which company you are working, tell him your designation, sing a song, you might say, hey, I don't want to do that. Why should I do? I will sing a song when I want to do. And this is what we forget when we are dealing with a child. So remember, the child is also a human being, and our expectations from the child should be reasonable. And when it becomes unreasonable, or when our expectation exceeds or does not conform with what the child is doing, that's where the problem starts. Remember, friends, that childhood is the most exciting phase of the child's life. Now, for example, if suppose you buy a very say a costly toy for your child, say you buy a Barbie doll. Now what do you expect your child to do with that? The child probably plays plays for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then throw away the toy. Okay, and then we get very angry. We say, oh come on, we have bought such a costly toy, but we have played it only for 10 minutes and we have thrown it away. But what the child has got from that toy? Remember, the child, when he gets a toy, what does it do? It tries to hold the toy. So it is trying to feel the feeling of the toy. It will try to bang the toy on the floor or on some object to hear the sound. Might put it in the mouth to feel the taste. Okay, might just try to press the toy to see how the toy is making the sound. That's it. That's what the child has to learn from the toy. It has actually satisfied the entire sensory motivation what a child can give, the toy can give to the child, and that's what the child requires. But we feel that we have bought a costly toy to the child, and this a costly toy the child should be playing, but the child doesn't require, because the child tries to explore, and exploration is we do till we are satisfied with all our sensory sensations, that is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and feeling. Once we have done it, the toy has absolutely no other role in the child's life, and that's why the toy is being thrown away. So remember why the child is doing those things and try to understand. For example, in case of, instead of a toy, you give a child a spoon and a bowl or a plate, what will the child will do? The child keeps on banging on that spoon and plate for a very long period of time. Now why the child is doing that? The child is doing that because every time the child hits the spoon with the plate, it hears a different sound. He has a different feel, and that's why he keeps on doing it. So this is an explorative lust which is there in the child, and probably that is what makes a human race a superior race in the world. We try to have this explorative lust, we try to explore, we try to understand things, and we as a parent try to curb this explorative behavior in the children, and this is what causes a problem. Remember, the human is one of the race where the child is dependent on the humans for a maximum period of time. For example, a shark, as soon as it's born, within 18 minutes of the shark being born, the baby shark is ready to fend itself, is ready to go and prey and eat. But the child is dependent on the parents for say 8 years, 9 years, 10 years to provide the food, to provide the shelter, to protect the child. And probably this prolonged period of the childhood is giving the child enough resources to become a better human being, probably a superior race, and is trying to rule the world. And this is one thing which actually helps the child. But in this process, yes, definitely the child might do some behavior which does not conform to us, and then we say my child is not behaving well. Try to understand why the child is doing. So coming back to the topic, when we say that there is a behavior problem, if you look at the definition of what is a behavior problem, the textbook definition says a young person is supposed to have a behavior problem when he or she demonstrates a behavior that is noticeably different from what is expected from the community or from the school. But what we understand as a parent, a behavior disorder is when the child is not doing what we want him to do at that particular period of time, and that conflict between the parent and the child causes this behavior problem. Now if we look at the behavior problem, 90% of the time we assume the child is not behaving well, and then whatever behavior the child is doing, we try to always look or analyze that from the angle, because we have already assumed that the child is not going to behave well. For example, if you are sitting in a room and your child is sitting in another room and not making any sounds, or there is no noise coming from that room, what is your perception as a parent? 99% of us, we will be scared that if we are not hearing a sound from that room where the child is sitting inside the room, something very big is happening. Probably child is trying to do something very big which we are scared of, and we will always try to go inside that room and try to see what the child is doing. So this is a perception. It's not that every time the child is not making a sound that means that a child is trying to do something bad, but we have this thing in our mind. We always feel एकदम साउंड नहीं आ रही है, बहुत गड़बड़ हो रहा है, जाके चेक करो, the child might be doing something very big. So that is wrong. That's where a perception starts. And then when we go inside the room and we find out even a pen is fallen down, our question will be, ये पेन नीचे क्यों गिरा हुआ है? What were you doing? You are not keeping the things properly, because we have presumed that the child is doing something wrong inside that room. So a presumption of a child behavior or a prejudgment that the child is doing something wrong actually makes us judgment get clouded, and we try to always look at the child with an eye of trying to find out the problem in the child behavior. Now, if you look at the child behavior, as I said initially, there's an increase in the child behavior. I'll say behavior problem in the children in the last 4 to 5 months. But this behavior problem is going on for quite some time, for past 2 decades or probably a decade. This has happened because as there is an increase in the nuclear family, the extended families are going down. There is always a child who is staying with only either 1-2 parents, and most of them maybe both of the parents are working, and the child stays either at home, staying as either at a play group or staying with a nanny. The child feels lonely. There's a decrease in the quality time that we spend with the child as a parent. There's an increase in the parental expectation from the children. As when we were small, we were supposed to either study or go out and play. I think there was no other expectation from our parents from us. But nowadays, as a parent, we expect the child to play. We expect the child to be good at computers, probably have a good hobby, have a good sport, be good in the extracurricular activity. Plenty of expectations that we have from our children, and that expectation puts a lot of stress on the child, and the child starts developing that anxiety or depressive behavior or a psychosocial behavior, which I'll be coming to a little later. Other problem is the peer pressure. You remember when I was talking initially when we started that if there is a friend who comes to your house and you ask in front of the friend your child to tell the name or tell about the school, which class he is studying, sing a song or tell some nursery rhyme. Now what happens there? In case if the child is not doing what we want the child to do, what happens is we scold the child. But look at the other angle also. If your child behaves very well, he tells everything what you have told, then what will happen? This person goes back to home and he starts scolding his children, saying, see, I went to his house, his children were behaving so well, but here what you people do, you keep on jumping, you keep on doing things, you are not listening to what as a parents we are telling. So that is where the conflict comes. There's a lot of peer pressure, there's a lot of parental expectations, and there's definitely a substantial increase in the study load. I remember, I'm a doctor now, but what I have studied in my probably 10th or 12th standard in my biology or in my science, my daughter was studying in class 7th and 8th. It is not that her intelligence quotient has gone up in one generation. It is the study load which has gone up. Probably there are better ways of a child to study, they have a better resources, but remember the study load has substantially increased and the child struggles sometimes to cope up with that study load. And this struggle, the parent should be with him, not against him to do well, and otherwise this will actually put more pressure on the child and their behavior disorder increases. The biggest problem what we are seeing in last 5 months is the social lockdown or the social I say social capturing, where the child is being captured or confined to the house. They are not able to go out. Their 90% of the activity what they were doing has been curtailed. Neither they meet with their friends, they don't go down to play, the school is gone, the daily chit-chatting is gone, and now another problem has come, which is coming as in online classes, where they are supposed to sit in front of the computer and study. This was one of the things which the children used to love. Sit in front of the computers, probably play games, browse, but now sitting in front of the computer is synonymous with reading, and that has actually taken away one more avenue where the child might have enjoyed during the lockdown. So there are a lot of pressures during this period of time, I will say last 5 years, and plus it is precipitated now for past 5 months, which has caused the child to have an increase in behavior disorders. Now if we try to categorize the behavior disorders, there are 2 or 3 behavior disorders that we look at, and that is what we are going to talk about. The first and foremost is a psychosocial disorders, then is a habit disorders, there's an anxiety disorders, there's a disruptive behavior. So these are the things that we are going to look at. Now the first one is a psychosocial disorder. When I say psychosocial disorder, what does it mean? It means a child is becoming either extremely anxious or becoming very depressed. Now if we put it in a common man's language, that means either the child has become hyperactive or it has become very less active, very less communicative. Now this either a very aggressive behavior or very diminutive behavior is usually your psychosocial disorder, right? The other aspect of the psychosocial disorder, which is very common, is a lying, okay, a common lie, or what I call it as a convenient lie, where the child starts lying and telling the things which we presume that the child has not done, but it is just telling like that. So these are the psychosocial disorders. Let's just talk about this in a little detail. So an increase in aggression or a decrease in the activity or a convenient lie, these are all the things which happens to the child because of few things that happens in the household, or which is happening little bit more frequently nowadays because of the lockdown. The first and foremost is the judgmental aspect of a parent, where we try to judge the child and try to always find why the child is doing things and trying to tell the child why you are doing this. Okay, for example, if a child comes and tells you that, say in nowadays scenario, that I got a homework yesterday and I have not finished the homework, I didn't do it, I didn't feel like doing it, or I forgot to do it. Okay, now as a parent, what is your response? Our response 99% of the time is that we start scolding the child. We will tell them, what, you have not done your homework? This is what you are doing full day. What you do inside the house, you either see TV or you watch movies. You are not doing the work. We have given you the computer, whatever you have asked, we have provided you, but you are not doing it. But probably we are right. We are right in what all we have said, but the timing is very wrong. What we have tried, where we are trying to portray to a child, is not what we are talking. What we are portrayed to a child is, if you come with a problem to us, you tell us what has happened or what you have done. If it is right, we will listen to you. If it is wrong, then we are going to scold you. So what will happen? The child will slowly stop coming and telling you the wrong things. He will never come and tell you that he has not done the homework. He will never come and tell you that he has not done his exams well. He will never come and tell you that the teacher has scolded him because he was misbehaving in the class. Because what will happen? If he tells you all that, you are going to scold him. You are going to be judgmental. So that convenient lie what the child develops is because he knows that if he is going to tell you all these things, you are going to scold him. As a parent, I'm not saying that you don't teach your child what is right or what is wrong, but the timing of teaching has not to be the time when the child is coming and sincerely telling you what he has done. That is the time where you accept that the child has done something wrong, understand your child, try to find out a solution along with the child as a partner, not against the child, where make a child stand on the in a katgara and tell him that you are wrong and you are a criminal and I am a lawyer or I am a judge and this is what a punishment you are going to get, you are grounded. Then why the child will come and talk to you? So you have to keep your communication line open. Always try to listen to your child when he's talking, and when the child is talking to you, that is probably not the time where, as a parent or as a preacher, that you start preaching or telling him. When the child talks to you, listen. There will be a time when the child is ready to listen to you. That is the time when you talk. Or if the child asks you what I shall do, that is the time when you talk. But don't try to preach the child every time you get an opportunity. That is something which we have to remember as a parent. Try to curb the behavior to tell the child what is right or what is wrong or why he is wrong or what he has done every time that there is an opportunity. That is very wrong. Second most important thing is the modeling of the behavior. We always tell the child telling lie is wrong, but how many times it has happened that in front of the child you have called on the phone to your office to tell that you are not well today, or you are having a headache, or you are not feeling well, and that's why you are not coming to the office, and probably you are well. You are just telling a lie not to go to the office that day, and the child listens to this, and he understands that this is a convenient lie which my parents use. And then tomorrow, if you are going to tell him lying is wrong, the child knows it is not wrong. The child knows you are just trying to tell him to stop him from doing it, but inside his brain he knows that he can use it as and when required. So the second important thing as a parent to remember is that when we are trying to tell something to a child, we should be modeling, or we should be doing the same thing in front of the child. Okay, if you are telling a lie to somebody else, you have actually gained zero ground when you are trying to tell your child that don't tell lies. Okay, so that is second thing. Third more important thing is, try to understand the reason why the child has not done the things, and try to correct that root cause rather than trying to punish the child for the action. Okay, for example, if suppose you have bought a very expensive piece of cutlery or glasses, and you ask a child to get a water into in the glass that you have bought new, which is very expensive one. Now 90% of the time we tell a child that go and get the water in that glass, but most of us as a parents, we don't stop there. We tell three more instructions to your child. The first instruction is, be careful when you are bringing that, don't drop that, it's very expensive, make sure that you are not going to break it. Okay, and be very careful when you are bringing it. Or you have put so much stress on your child before he is trying to do some activity. This stress is going to make him get into an anticipatory problem, where he anticipate that when I'm trying to do this, there's going to be a problem, and there is a chance that the child might drop the glass because he's extra cautious. Put yourself into your child's place and just try to think about it. The same thing we do most of the time. If somebody tells us this is a project that you have to finish, make sure you finish it within 2 hours. It is very important, and if you don't finish it in 2 hours, we are going to have a problem. Last time that you have done it and you were not able to finish it, this time I don't want to hear this. If these are the type of instructions your boss is giving you, there is a chance that you might goof up with your project. You might not be able to keep the timeline that what your boss has given you. This is because you are anticipating that a problem can come because of the multiple instructions which is being given to you. Same thing happens to a child. So as a parent, when you are trying to find out a problem, try to just find out the problem and try to give a solution. Don't tell him 10 different things, what can happen, what can go wrong. So the three important things to remember whenever the child is having a problem: the first, listen. And listening is a big virtue, my friends. Okay, most of us, we lose patience within 10 to 15 seconds of listening, because listening means listen till your child is talking. The second, modeling the behavior which you want your child to do. And the third, don't try to give an anticipatory instructions of a failure to a child, because he is going to fail, because when you have given so many instructions to tell him what are the conditions where he can fail. Now another problem which how to overcome this problem. Now the way that we can overcome this problem is, one, as I told you, modeling the behavior, trying to listen to the child. And the third more important thing is, and this is what we keep on hearing again and again whenever we talk about the child psychology, is a positive reinforcement. We should always try to encourage the child to do a positive behavior. Most of us as a parents, we are very negative parents, where we always tell them not to do the negative behavior, or tell them that this is a negative behavior and we should not be doing it. For example, I am a doctor, I am a pediatrician. I have seen so many parents who come to my cabin, to the hospital, and they bring their child to us, and when we are talking, like myself and the parents, the child sometimes get bored. He is not interested in what we are talking, and he starts roaming around in my room. Now as a parents, what most of us will do. If the child comes to the room, near to my table, he tries to touch the torch. As a parent, they will say, don't touch the torch. Then he will try to hold the stethoscope. They will say, don't touch the stethoscope, come sit here. Now he comes and sit. There are a lot of things lying down in my room because I want to make a child feel comfortable. He holds a pen, they tell, don't hold the pen. So what is happening is, we are telling the child what not to do, and we are becoming what is called as a very negative or a no-doer parents. We keep on telling a child what not to do. But try to tell the child what to do. Most of the time the problem will be solved if we tell the child what to do rather than what not to do. So that is one important thing. Always try to tell the child what to do, but at an appropriate time. We have already discussed about that. Second, maybe your child is doing a wrong thing most of the time, but there might be a time when he does a good thing. Okay, now what do we do when the child does the thing properly? For example, suppose you have bought a very expensive book to your child. Say you have bought an encyclopedia for your child. Okay, and you are watching a TV, and a child comes and sits next to you and opens the book and start reading that book. Now, as a parent, what you will do? Most of the time, we don't do anything. We are very happy. We feel happy that the child is sitting nicely and he is reading the book. Okay. Now, it is, so you see this in a other scenario. Suppose a child comes and sits next to you, open that expensive book, but what you have bought for your child, and now he starts tearing a page from that book. Now, what you will do as a parent? Definitely we are going to scold, isn't it? We are going to snatch away the book from him, and we'll tell him, don't do this. This is how you behave. It's such an expensive book. Give the book to me. I'll read it for you. I'll show you how to read the book, or I'll show you how to keep the book properly. So what you are doing? You are trying to give a reinforcement to the child when he is doing a negative behavior. Actually, what we should be doing, we should be giving a reinforcement to the child when he is doing a positive behavior. And that is called as a positive reinforcement. Whenever the child tries to do something which is right, always encourage. Always acknowledge that the child has done something wrong. It might not be the entire thing what he has done which is right. It might be just an attempt. Suppose you tell your child to keep your room clean. Now the child one day does not keep the entire room clean, but he is trying to just keep the towel at a proper place. Acknowledge that the child has done something. Encourage, appreciate that the child has done something right. That is the first step in making a child understand the instructions and do more. I'll be talking to you about the positive reinforcement a little later, but remember this. Always try to encourage the positive behavior. We always try to negatively reinforce the negative behavior, and the child will keep on pointing out what wrong things he's doing. But actually the best thing is to try to always do what is called as positive reinforcement. Alright. Now the second most important thing as a parent, remember, most of the time the child tells us about the convenient lie, what we are talking about, that the things have not going properly, or the studies are not going good, or something is going wrong in the school, but the child doesn't come and tell you, or in the college. Most of the time it happens because we always try to portray in front of the child that everything in our life is absolutely good. We are an ideal parent, we are an ideal human being, everything happens good in our life. We always behave well, always everybody behaves well in our life. But it doesn't happen. We also have a good day and bad day at home, or at the office, or at the workplace, or wherever we are. Okay, but we never tell this to a child. To a child, he always feels that if there is something wrong which is happening, I am the only person in the world where these things happen. So it's very important that we find out, as a parent, find out a time where we all sit down and discuss about what has happened to a day with a child. Try to tell if there's something your day has not gone well. Always tell to the child, today I had a bad day, today I was not able to finish the things, I was not able to do the things. It is not that you are trying to tell your child that you are a failure as a human being. You are trying to tell your child that, look, there can be a days where I anticipate that the things will go in one way, but the things have gone in the other way, and it is absolutely okay that if the things have not gone with a way. So it gives two things. One, it gives a strength to the child to understand that the things can go wrong. It's okay. that if the child has failed, he can again try. There's another day. And the other important thing is, it opens an avenue for the child also to come and tell you if the things have gone wrong, and since you are telling him that the things are going wrong. So it's very important not to be judgmental, to give a positive reinforcement, and always try to talk to a child and tell him that you are also a normal human being, and the things which is happening to him has either happened to you in the school time, or it is still happening to you every day. Something not going right, or something which is not going as anticipated, and this actually decreases the stress a lot in your child's life. Now, other problem is the habit problem. A lot of habit problem is coming nowadays because of this lockdown. Thumb sucking, repetitive vocalization, nail biting, hair pulling, head banging, lot of anxiety related problem, like a child suddenly starts stuttering, or the child will say that suddenly, nowadays a lot of parents are coming and telling me that the child is having a body pains, or the child says I'm not able to see, I'm not able to hear. Now these are all attention reducing or attention seeking behavior, where a child starts developing a problem which have actually no relation usually with a medical problem, but these are the things which have come up because of some growing tension in the child's life. Most of the time it is because of a sudden change in the child's environment because of the lockdown. Now what we can do as a parent, first and foremost, is that if the child is trying to do some behavior like this, try to analyze if this behavior is causing a real problem in the child's life or not. For example, if the child says I am having a stomach pain, and most of the time I am hearing nowadays the parents will say the child start having the stomach pain at 8:30 or 9 o'clock when the online classes starts, and he will be rolling in the pain. After half an hour, when we tell him okay fine, you don't have to attend your classes, he becomes all right and he starts playing. Okay, so now you know that this is something which is actually not happening because of a real pain. This is something which the child is trying to avoid. There can be multiple behaviors: a stomach pain, vomiting sensation. The child will tell that as soon as he sees the food, he gets a vomiting sensation. He doesn't want to eat the food. But the same child, you get him a burger, or you get him a McD, or you get him a Maggie, he's ready to eat. So these are the medical problems which are coming, which are having an ingrained or an underlying psychological problem, not a real medical problem. Now, as a parent, what we can do? The first is that try to reduce the tension in the child's life. Most of these problems which comes like nail biting, head pulling, thumb sucking, or passing urine in the bed, these are reinforced by an excessive attention or micromanaging the child's environment. As a parent, we feel that it is a duty to keep a watch on what the child is doing, and I think that is right. But micromanaging, where we give a notion to the child that we are monitoring each and every step that you are doing, now this is wrong. If somebody always keeps a watch on you, you get tensed, you are not able to perform to your full extent, and the same thing that we do to a child. So try not to micromanage the child. Understand that the child requires a security. As a parent, you require to oversee what the child is doing, but the child should have a space where he can be able to express himself, either to his friends or alone, where he has a me time, where he can do something what he wants. It is not that every time that we have to tell him what you should be doing, or how you should be doing things. So micromanaging the child always causes a problem. The other problem which causes this type of behavior, which is called as habit behavior or attention seeking behavior, is that there can be an insecurity. Insecurity can be any place. It can be bullying, either in the school, online, with his friends, with the caregivers. So always try to be open to find out about those subtle signs what the child will give you, which will tell you that there is some tension which is going in your child's life, a stress which is going in your child's life. This can be either a subtle change in the behavior, like the child is not sleeping, the child is irritable, child doesn't want to listen to you, doesn't want to talk to you. A sudden change in these behavior, or sudden decrease in the eating or the appetite, these are all the stress factors which a child might exhibit, or this is called as a red flag signs, which we as a parent should be able to pick up. Now remember, this is a very delicate phase of the child's life, where the child is not telling you about the tension which is happening. But if you presume that there's a tension, the first thing is that always try to create an environment where the child will be able to open up and come and talk to you, be able to come and tell in case there's a problem. You can ask him or her very subtly about the problems that the child is facing, or in case there is any tension. You can always do a certain or a very subtle background check with the child's friends or in the school, to find out how the child is doing. Try to, in case if the child has a social media records, you can always check them also to see in case if nobody is trying to do what is called as cyberbullying to your child, or anybody is trying to talk. Very important that you keep the avenue open for talking. Friends, it's very important that you should allow your child to come and talk to you, and always listen. We as a parent, when we become very judgmental, actually we close this avenue. And when we close this avenue, we don't know who will talk to your child and what they will talk. And there are people around who are ready to misguide your child or take the child off track. So it's very important that if the child has a problem in the life, you should be the first person whom the child is seeking. And for the child to seek you as a parent or as a friend, you have to listen. You have to understand your child. When he is talking, just listen and give him the advice without getting judgmental. So this again, coming back to the point what we are talking to you, so keep the avenue of the child to come back and talk to you, and it's very important. And always remember that when we were talking about the positive reinforcement, when you are trying to encourage the child to do something positive, okay, try to remember that appreciation to the child when he is trying to attempt to come and talk to you is equally important. Try to appreciate and tell your child that it is a very good thing that he has come and talked to you. Sometimes as a parent, it is very important for you to just listen to your child without giving him a solution. Ask him if he wants a solution or not. If he doesn't, don't try to give a solution. Tell him or ask him when is the appropriate time that we can talk again about this, and let us discuss, let us try to find, and then give an alternative. Okay, probably if this is not going right, let us try to do this, try to find out this, and try to always give a solution in a stepwise manner. Don't tell him, oh, you have not passed your test, from tomorrow you are going to study all your chapters. You know it is not practically possible for anybody to read the entire book in 1 week. What you can tell him, okay, in case if there is a problem, let us first read about the things which you like. If you have not passed the test, or if you have not done the test properly, step 1, try to read the things which you like or which you understand. Try to write them down. Then try to read the things which you have not understood completely. Try to understand. If you need my help or you want other help, online classes or whatever, I'll be able to help you there. And then the things which you have not understood at all, let us try to write those things, and then we will try to tackle them later. So when you give the stepwise approach to your child, the child knows that you are trying to help him. You are helping him because you are understanding that there is a problem, rather than giving an arbitrary answers, telling him that you have to read the book cover to cover. In 1 week, I want you to finish all the exercise and show me. If you don't show me, I'm going to shout at you. This is not an answer. This is not a solution. This is a punishment. And remember, the child will not improve with the punishment. The child improves with the solution. Right? Now, the other problem about the child's these habit disorders like thumb sucking or pulling the hairs, nail biting, is that every time they do that, we always try to tell them, see, you are doing this, stop doing it. Okay, so the way to overcome the habit problem are two. The first is called as willful ignorance, where don't try to point it out to the child that he is doing something again and again. First time, yes, you have to tell him, but again, every time he puts a thumb in the mouth or every time he starts to bite the nail, don't stop him. Okay, ignore. Sometimes the child will stop doing it because you are not telling him to do again and again. That is one thing. Second thing is what is called as stepwise positive reinforcement. Suppose, for example, if the child is biting the nails, every time he sits in front of the TV and he bites the nails, you see him doing that or her doing that. But one of the days he doesn't do that. That is the time when you tell him, oh wow, see what you have done today. You were watching the TV and you didn't bite your nails. Okay, this is a very good thing. Probably, I think you are doing very good, and if you keep on increasing this, I think you are going to do well. This is a positive reinforcement. You have encouraged your child to stop doing this thing by not telling him to stop, but trying to tell him that you are doing the right thing. Okay, so this is a positive reinforcement. Now, I've been talking about this positive reinforcement. Let's talk about this positive reinforcement. What actually is this positive reinforcement? As I said, the positive reinforcement is that we are trying to reinforce the positive behavior in the children. There are a lot of ways of doing it. The first and the foremost is acknowledge every time the child is trying to attempt to do something. And as I said, he doesn't have to do everything from A to Z right. He might do from A to B or A to C, where he's trying to attempt to do something which is in the right direction. Acknowledge, capture, and try to appreciate. Okay, now there are various ways of acknowledging and appreciating. Okay, most of us, we try to do what is called as materialistic appreciation, where we tell them, if you do this thing right, I'm going to take you to a mall, or I'm going to buy this thing. That is not the appreciation. You are trying to tell your child that everything in the life is related to the materialistic entertainment or materialistic good sense of being, which is wrong. The best way of appreciating the child is to try to tell him that he is good. And the way to do it, one, appreciate then and there. Okay, that's the best place to do it. Tell verbally as well as physically. Physically is tapping the back, giving him a hug. Verbally by appreciating. And then socially you can do, suppose he has done something good or the room he has cleaned, click a photograph, put it on your social media where the child knows that you are doing it. Try to tell 10 people that, see, this is what my child has done. A smile on the social media for a child by this is actually going to give a lot of enforcement or a lot of encouragement to the child. Appreciate your child in front of the friends, telling them that, see, he or she has done a beautiful thing today, or has done the homework well, or has done has cleaned the room, or is done whatever you want. I mean, whatever positive behavior that you want to generate in your child. So that encouragement or that positive reinforcement is going to help your child. Another thing that the child always learns a good behavior is by giving him what is called as a reward points. Reward point is something where we always tell the child that if you are doing these things in a week's time, if you are trying to do this behavior and you are bringing your behavior from here to here, this is what you are going to get. The reward points is, you can put what is the typical reward point is is a chart reward, where you put a chart in the room or stick it on the refrigerator and try to give a star every time a child does something which is right, or this thing doing a right type of behavior. At the end of a week or at the end of the month, the child counts the stars, how many stars he has got, and he gets something out of it. And when I said something, it can be materialistic. I'm not saying that don't buy things or don't get the things for the child, but materialistic plus whatever the child wants. He wants an increased time in front of the TV, or he wants to see his favorite movie, he wants to go out to a favorite place, he wants to eat some favorite food. He has to get that X award points. So when you are giving those award points, the child starts to try to work on it, work towards that reward that he wanted to get, and in that anticipation he is going to get into a positive behavior, and slowly this positive behavior gets ingrained into the child, and this behavior turns into the normal behavior. So you have won a battle of positive behavior by trying to do these things. So a reward point or a positive reinforcement is very important. And remember, positive reinforcement has to be verbal, where you're going to appreciate the child then and there. It has to be physical, where you shake hand with the child, pat the back, give a hug, a social reinforcement where you're trying to tell his friends, tell other family members that the child has done well, putting on the social media, talking to the school, WhatsApp group, whatever. There are so many avenues now open as a parents to try to appreciate your child, get him the reward points, anticipate, uh, uh, give a child an anticipation that this is, if your behavior comes from here to here, even in the small steps, this is what he's going to get. This is a way of trying to ingrain a positive behavior in the child. And a positive reinforcement probably is the best way to improve your child's behavior. Now, another problem is a disruptive behavior. Now, some of the times the child becomes very disruptive. Uh, Mostly it's a tantrums either in the house, where the child starts bawling or shouting if he's not getting the things what he wants. Sometimes we have seen in the malls that the child wants to go inside a toy shop or wants to buy a toy, and most of the time the child is shouting or crying there. The parents are trying to pull the child away from the shop, but the child wants to stay there or go inside the shop and buy. Now, these are the bad behavior at the public places or the tantrums which the child develops, and these are called as a disruptive behaviors. Now, these disruptive behaviors in the child is because of when child trying to anticipate something which he should get, and we as a parent do not want to give that to the child. And probably this is the place where, as a parent, I feel that we should be putting a foot down and trying to make the child understand that the child might not get every time what he wants. Okay, now there are two ways of overcoming this. The first, make the child understand that if he does that behavior, we are not listening to him. Now, I give you an example. Let us look back at the scenario that I was talking to you, where a child is with a parent in a mall, crying and wants to go inside a shop to buy a toy, and as a parent we don't want him to go inside the shop and buy. So what we do, we try to pull the child with all the force and try to tell, no, we are not going inside the shop, and the child is saying, no, I want to go inside the shop. Now this tussle happens. Now, how do we overcome this? The first thing is that in case if the child is demonstrating a behavior like this, move away from child. Okay, so what will happen is, the child whom you are trying to pull, if you leave the hand and you start walking away from the child and say, okay, you want to cry, you cry here, I am going away. Okay, now what do you anticipate the child will do? This child who was not trying to move an inch in from the shop that he wanted to go inside, if you leave the hand and start walking away, he will start running behind you. The child might come running behind you, might come be very angry and will start hitting you, but will start walking with you. Now, why that happens? Because when you are fighting with the child, you are the center of the child environment. The child forgets to see what is happening around him. But when you move away from the scene, that is the time when you make the child realize that he is doing something which is wrong. There are other people who are seeing it. There, where he is, all those things will start dawning to the child. And when this happens, this is the time when the child will stop doing that behavior. So the first step in a disruptive behavior is first move away. When you move away, you are giving the scope to the child to come to the realistic situation where he will find himself in. So he will stop doing that behavior. So that is the first step. The second, suppose if the child does the same thing in the house, where he wants to see the TV, and you don't want him to see the TV because the child is seeing the TV for a long time and you have switched it off. Now he starts crying, he lies down on the floor and starts howling or shouting or fighting for the remote or want to switch on the TV. Right. So this is the time when you will tell your child, no, if I have told, or if we feel that this is the time when you should not be seeing the TV, this is the right way of stopping. So if you want to cry, but the TV doesn't get switched on. So this is called as a downtime or a timeout, where you tell your child for 10 minutes, we are not talking to you, you're not going to see the TV. You want to cry or you want to shout, you can shout, and after you stop shouting, come back and we'll talk again. So this timeout that we are giving to the child is helping the child in two ways. One, the child will realize what position he was in. The second thing is, we are not negatively reinforcing his negative behavior. Remember, we were talking about the positive and the negative reinforcement. So this is the time when we are telling, by moving away, we are telling a child that we are not going to listen to you or talk to you when you are having a bad behavior. Okay, so that is the time when the child realizes that this bad behavior, nobody is listening. Okay, when he understands or anticipates that, that is going to help. Okay, now timeout is a very, very important aspect. If as a parent we have decided that we are not going to talk to the child for 10 minutes because he is misbehaving, then nobody should be talking to the child. But there are 3 golden rules whenever we talk about the timeout. The first golden rule is that we should be very consistent in when we are trying to point out to the child what is a right behavior or a wrong behavior. As I gave you the example about the TV. Now remember, no child is born born with a phone or a TV in the hand because the child wants to see the TV all the time or see the mobile all the time. These things happen because we only give this habit to the child. Most of the time I have seen the parents bring a child to me in my clinic, and when we want to give the vaccine and the child is crying because we are giving an injection, the first thing that the parents do is try to bring out the phone from the pocket, put on a rhyme or something and try to show to the child and say, see this, don't cry, look at this. So what we are trying to tell? We are trying to tell a child, if you are feeling bad, see TV or see mobile. Most of us, we want to see the TV when we are eating food. So what we are trying to tell the child is, when you want to eat food, watch media, either watch rhymes, watch TV or watch mobile. When we are happy, most of the time we tell our children, okay, we are going to take you to a movie. So we are telling them that if we are happy, the happiness comes by watching a movie. Okay, so we actually ingrain in a child that looking at the media is probably the best time pass for the child. And when the child tries to do that, then we stop him, right? So the first important thing is that try to always restrict the media time for the child from the very beginning, so the child understands that he has to see the TV probably for an hour, and we have to be consistent. If we are allowing the child to see the TV for an hour, and that is a pact with the child that you are going to see for an hour the screen time, an hour is what he will see. After that we should switch off. So don't start switching off the TV in 20 minutes because your mood is bad or you have come in a bad mood and you want to say, let's switch off the TV, nobody will see TV, I'm in a bad mood or I'm having a migraine. No. Okay, so there's a pact that the child is going to watch. Probably that day fine, but every day if you are in a bad mood, don't try to take out that on the child and take out the privileges what you have given to the child. That is first thing. Second thing, you have to be consistent, as I said, that this is a behavior where if you are seeing a TV for more than an hour, then we are going to stop it. And in case if the child tries to do an disruptive behavior at that time, then give him a timeout. Okay, so the timeout is very important, but we have to be very consistent. Now the second important aspect is, as we were saying about the media or the TV or mobile or iPad or whatever, most of the time it happens because we as a family nowadays have become a very media savvy family. Most of us, we are with the media. Even I also feel sometimes, because I am also on a mobile most of the time. But we should always try to find to spend what is called as a quality time with the child. The quality time is a time that we are spending with the children, giving the full attention to a child. Okay, keeping the phone away, keeping the TV away, switching it off. And my friends, this is something which has been missing, and I feel that not spending a quality time with a family is what is creating the maximum problem. Okay, so always try to spend a quality time. Quality time is when your time is completely for the child. Okay, now when we talk about this quality time or the behavior in the child, all what we have talked about right now is that As a parent, it is in our hand that we can always mold the behavior of a child. As a parent, we have a power to nurture a human being. We can make a change in the society by making a change in a child. Okay, you are trying to give something positive to your child, so don't be a negative parent. Negate or no parenting where we tell our child what not to do should be taken out. What we should be doing is a positive parenting where we are telling the child what are the things you can do, give an alternative to the child what he can do. Second important thing is modeling the behavior that we want a child to do. In case if we want a child to not to tell the lie, we should always be doing this. If we want a child not to fight with his friend, then we should be doing the same behavior, not fighting with the friends. As adults we don't do, but we scold the maid, we scold the driver, we always try to overpower the people who are less powerful than us, and we do most of the time this in front of a child, and the child learns that if he has the power, he can always try to use that brute force in the people who cannot retaliate, and that is again a model behavior. So try not to do the destructive behavior in front of the child. Always try to do a positive reinforcement for developing a habit. Try to do that in a stepwise manner where you always try to analyze a problem, try to listen to your child, give him a solution, try to give him the steps. Okay, there are 5 steps that we'll do. First, let us, for the beginning, we'll try to do the small step. We'll do this, then from here we'll go little higher, then little higher and little higher, and try to acknowledge whenever your child is trying to do this. Appreciate. Appreciation should be verbal, should be physical and social. Very important that we should always work with the child as a team, not to be judgmental on the child. Whenever the child does something wrong, always don't try to tell him why he has done wrong. Try to find out why he has done wrong and try to find a solution as a friend to your child. Remember friends, a child stays with us for a very small period of time. Although we feel that a child stays with us say for 15 years or 18 years. Now remember, out of these 18 years, half of the time the child is sleeping, isn't it? So we have only 9 years we spend with a child. Out of that 9 years, the first 3 years the child does not interact with the parents so much, so we have got only 6 years left. Out of those 6 years where we have to spend with the child, the time with the child, out of that, half of the time the child is in school, so we are left with the 3 years. Now out of this 3 years, the child is playing, or we are at office, or we are not with the child, so that leaves with 1.5 years. That is roughly 500 days. Out of that 500 days, it is we are not always spending the time with a child. We are doing some of our work, so that leaves around only 250 or around 200 days. Friends, when the child grows from birth to 18 years, we spend only those 200 days with a child, and that 200 days is going to make a difference in the child's life. As a parent, the time is running out. The most important thing is spend a quality time with the child. Listen to your child. Talk to your child. Give love to your child. And most important is, as a parent, we have to tell him that the child is absolutely fine. Okay, whatever he is going to achieve, remember that is your child. Okay, the child doesn't come and give you a option of saying that if you do well in your profession or if you are getting a good job, then only I'll call you as a good parent, otherwise you are not a good parent. The child never tells us, but we always put this lot of equation to the child, telling him that only if you get a good marks in your exams, then I will say that you are a good child, otherwise I'll not talk to you. No, try to give your child love which is unconditional. Tell your child that try your best, try whatever you can do in your life. At the end of the day, it is not the result that matters, it is your the acknowledgement of what effort that you have put. And if you have put in good effort with the total sincerity, we understand that, and whatever may be the result, we love you at the end of the day. Try to tell your child that your achievement is not what you are going to love. You are going to love your child as a human being, and when you try to do that, When you try to give that physical touch to your child, telling him that he or she is the best thing that has happened to you, I bet you, friends, that your child is going to be good. The child is going to behave well, and the child is going to give you a good answer as far as the behavior is concerned. You will be able to give a good reinforcement to your child, and the child is going to live a happy life. Friends, it's very important as a parents, we become very insecure when a child is doing something wrong, and that tension actually brings down the frustration for whatever is happening in our life, and we try to vent out that frustration on a child. Remember, your child is not your punching bag. The child is an essence that you have, and that is something which the child is one human being which loves you unconditionally. You also give an unconditional love to your child. Tell him that if he has done a good effort, that is enough for you, not the result that matters. Thank you very much, friends, and in case there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you for listening patiently for an hour, and I hope that with my talk here, I'll be able to make a little difference in your life. Thank you very much.